The purpose of this session is to help aspirants understand from Aswathy, who had cleared UPSC Civil Services Examination 2020 with extremely good rank, All India rank 41, a rank that ensures her that she can get any service of her preference, and police service has been her dream, and therefore she has chosen Indian Police Service. That was her first preference. So, Aswathy, thank you so much for joining us in this session. It's a pleasure to kind of speak with you again. So let me start off with a brief introduction about Aswathy. Yeah, hi Aswathy.
Hello, morning. Sir.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. So let me start with a very brief introduction about Aswathy. So Aswathy is from Kerala. She belongs to Idukki district of Kerala, and like many of us, she is an engineering graduate. She did her electronics and communications engineering from College of Engineering, Munnar, and she is the eldest of three children. Her father is a retired Air Force officer. Mother is a homemaker who also practices agriculture, and she has two younger brothers. And after completing her graduation in electronics and communication, she worked with Infosys for 3 years. And it was, as I listened to one of her speech, it was only in her mid-20s that this thing tried her to be in uniform services. She had tried a couple of other things also, like SST and all, but eventually she stuck to civil services. And I had the joy of meeting her in 2017 when I was teaching a few subjects, and Aswathy was a student there. And from there on, it's been a long and a very fruitful and a productive journey for the last 3 to 4 years. As I have mentioned to you, in order to structure this discussion and so that we can get maximum out of Aswathy's experience and wisdom that she has accumulated over the past 4 years studying for this exam. So I have divided this whole session, Aswathy, into two major parts. Okay. The first part, Aswathy, is that, are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the first part, Aswathy, was, as I had also mentioned to you in the email, is about certain things about if you can take us through the whole examination itself. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start with, maybe the prelims, then some of the things that you did, and interview. So we will go as per the agenda, Aswathy, if that's okay with you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So shall we get started if this is okay for you?
Yes, sir. For me, it's okay.
Yeah, perfect, Aswathy. So let's get started right away. So this is the broad agenda, Aswathy. Sorry, I'm not sharing the screen. 1 second. You must have seen the agenda, but nevertheless.
Yes, sir. I had seen, sir.
You have seen the agenda? Perfect.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. So in case for those who have not seen the invite or seen the agenda, this is the broad agenda, Aswathy, where people have been really asking me to have a session with you. So the first part that comes to everyone's mind is, Aswathy, as you always know, that there are 5 lakh students appearing for the prelims examination, of which around 10,000 eventually clear prelims. Yeah. So the success ratio is just 2%. In fact, of all the 3 stages, the prelims has the lowest success ratio of just 2%. Yeah. So it would be really helpful if you could, kind of tell us your journey on how you cracked the 2019 and 20 prelims. 2020 prelims, even in my experience, I found to be the toughest one. And 2021, the toughness level continues. So the first thing that the students wanted to ask you was, what can one do in order to clear prelims? Because many people have really put in years of hard work and then they eventually lose it. Now, as someone who has also not been able, who has your initial 1 or 2 attempts were tough with prelims. And then it was 2019, 2021, you started sailing prelims and then you were able to go to mains and interview. So if you could just give some tips on cracking prelims, Aswathy, what should someone do in order to crack prelims based on your experience? Over to you.
Yes, sir, definitely, sir. Yes, sir. So as you already mentioned, I was not able to clear both the 2017 attempt and 2018 attempt. So from those 2 attempts, I learned the mistakes that I had done. So in the case, in order to clear prelims, there are, I would say, three main aspects that we must consider. First is the static portion, which we get from the NCRTs and the standard books. So if we take the standard books, which are inevitable in the preparation, for polity, I studied Lakshmikant. So line by line, even if we read 6 to 7 times, that is even not sufficient for as a complete revision. Then in the case of history, I used NCRT books. First, I built my base with the help of Tamil Nadu state books, the 11th and 12th. So ancient, medieval, ancient and medieval. And in the case of modern India, Spectrum is a book which everyone follows. So all of these books and then environment, there are standard books available in the market, geography, NCRT. So these books, I think all the aspirants will be aware about which book to follow. However, what is lacking is the number of revisions. So even during after the interview, after attending my interview on August 20, I was preparing to write the prelims on October 10. So I found the number of revisions after having studied so much, even then it was not sufficient. So we tend to forget, though the questions which are asked in the prelims are they go into too much of detail. So yes, so it is required for every aspirant to complete at least 4 to 5 revisions before you conclude that you have read the static portion. So one is the static portion, and it requires revision. Second is the second aspect is with regard to current affairs. I have found that many of my friends keep current affairs pending for a long time. They don't take up or they don't revise current affairs unless and until a mock paper comes. So in my case, I used to write down, I used to take notes of daily current affairs, and that I like hard copy. So I used to write and then revise it on a daily basis. So for that revision, it does not take more than 5 to 10 minutes when I revise it on a daily basis. And then on a weekly basis also, I used to just take a recap. I wouldn't even call it as a revision, because taking the recap itself used to take around 40 minutes on a weekly basis. I used to do it because on Sundays, most of the websites do not upload any current affairs. So on Monday, generally for today's current affairs, I used to note down tomorrow, because the site that I used to follow, they upload it only at night after 9 or so. So I used to take notes the next day. And hence I got Monday as a free day, and I revised the entire week for the prior week. So current affairs needs regular revision, and always have atlas along with you, because it is essential to have atlas. Many questions are asked from maps directly. And third thing will be the number of mock tests that one needs to take. So I have heard many of the toppers taking 100 to 120 papers, but in my case, I have not taken more than 60, I would say. 50 to 60 was my count in both the exams that I cleared. And that too, in the first and second attempt, I never revised it. I scored comfortably, so I felt there was no need of revision. But in the third attempt, I asked one of my friends who cleared, and he told me that he had revised 3 to 4 times. So then onwards, I also began revising the mock papers. These 3 strategies would be enough, I believe, because this broadly covers every area that one must focus to clear prelims.
Great, Aswathy. I think that was very succinctly put and also very comprehensive. Thank you for that. And if there are any questions, aspirant can ask in part B of this program, where it is a dedicated question and answer session. Aswathy, then let's move on to the second part, which is scoring well in mains. Yeah. As we all know, prelims at the end of the day, for all its complexity, it's a screening test. It has no value in its as far as ranking is concerned. It is the mains and the interview that eventually helps you secure the rank that one eventually secures. So in mains also, the students' questions, whatever I have faced, it boils down to 3 parts, Aswathy. Okay. Part 1, optional, which many consider as the make or break. Part 2, essay. Part 3, ethics. Now, as I'm talking about optional, Aswathy, we will, if you have maybe 10 minutes more, there are 3 geography optional students who have cleared this year's prelims. They had some very specific questions. If you have time, we can do it soon after this call, or I'll schedule a separate call with you today, tomorrow on the geography alone. We have some 2-3 very good students, prospective students. So anyway, but overall, Aswathy, from an optional perspective, the broad do's and don'ts, essays, how does one approach? Ethics, how does one approach? 3 questions, Aswathy, on mains.
Yes, sir. So I will begin with optional.
Yeah.
Sir, as you know what I had done last year. So for the aspirants, I will let them know.
Yeah, sure.
I had not attempted the paper completely in the case of optional. I left around 60 marks, solid 60 marks unattended in geography. Because of that, my score was only 230 out of 500 last year. So this year, I made a special attempt to improve my speed in the case of writing as well as in the case of diagrams. And I was able to complete the paper this year. So I scaled my mark from 230 to 290. It's a 60 mark jump that I got in the case of optional. With regard to preparation for optional, I think it will hold good for all the optionals regardless of the subject. I had short notes for almost every topic given in the syllabus. And I also attempted 3 previous years' question. I attempted it completely. And then I had a set of diagrams for most of the topics. Along with the notes, I had diagrams as well. So all of these 3, if we do and revise it and have sufficient writing practice, I think that would be sufficient for optional. And I used to write and take constant feedback. So from whichever faculty you are fine with. Then in the case of ethics, my marks this year is not so great. It's not above 100. However, last year I had above 100.
Yeah.
So in general, I have seen that for ethics, people follow Insights launches a program around, I think by now they would have launched, I did not check, 70 days program for ethics Insights launches. So they upload 2 questions every day and ask the students to write. I used to write, some of the days I used to write both or at least 1 question, and then check the answers of the students who have uploaded it on the website and compare mine. I never used to upload it, but I used to read what they have written and take notes from those. If at all, I could add to my answer. And in the case of ethics, people also take more examples. I think the Better India, there are certain websites, some change makers. I'm not able to recollect the name of the website, but there are some websites which upload the work that have been done by bureaucrats. So those work we can quote as example when we have the topics from ethics, like value-based topics, honesty, integrity. For all those we need examples. And in the case of case studies, dedicated practice is required. So I had taken, for ethics, I had done only these, in addition to writing mock tests and taking the feedback as well as improving based upon the feedback. And sir, in the case of last one is the essay part. Essay part I had started in 2019 January. I remember that you had only promoted me to take up writing 1 essay a week. So initially I was very scared to write an essay because we need to write around 1000 to 1250 plus words. So however, you need to conquer that fear and write it however bad the first essay turns out to be. So from 2019 January, I started writing 1 essay per week and I got it evaluated from Uday sir. Then in addition, I also read the topper's answers copy, essay copy. We have it available on multiple websites such as Forum and then Vision. They upload their topper's copy. So this was essential for me because I did not have, or I do not have, a reading as my habit. For those who read books, they might have a better imagination and idea to present an essay. Since I was starving for ideas, I checked the topper's copy and I got idea from them. Then the third strategy I followed last year, my marks for essay was to 122. So this year it has raised to 136. I practiced even before the first paper is essay. So the day prior to the examination, I sat and wrote 2 essays. One was based on fact or statement based essay, and another one value based essay. So this gave me a confidence that I have practiced enough. In total, I have written more than 25 essay, including the mock as well as previous year's question. So this, and in addition, I have maintained a folder which contained facts, quotes, figures, or stories, whatever additional content with which I can embellish my essay. So these are the strategies that I followed for essay, sir.
Sure. So I think one important point, as I understand from this, Aswathy, is that while it's good to get from, let's say, faculty, but even peer-to-peer learning plays an important role, is what I understand. Because when you said you looked at the topper's copy,
yes, sir.
Someone else's uploaded copy, I think these are things that are freely available in the internet, which students can just pick up, and all that they have to do is apply themselves, put that effort to go through what toppers have done, so that they can imbibe some points. That's very interesting, Aswathy. That's very interesting. Sure. Thank you, Aswathy. Yes. Now, the last part of this examination, Aswathy, which perhaps, what we call as the personality test as per UPSC. You had the achievement of attempting 2 interviews, consecutive interviews for 2019 and 2020. And it's amazing that in interview also your score has jumped substantially. Yeah, more than 25 marks or around 25 marks, if I understand it correct. Some broad level points on personality test, Aswathy. The reason why I'm saying this, it's my belief that it's good to also think about personality test on and off while you are preparing, because it really takes a lot of time to change some aspects of our personality. Yeah. Any experiences that you would like to share based on both the interviews, 2019 as well as 2020? What didn't go well? What you felt went well? Anything around those points, actually?
Yes, sir. Sir, last year my interview score, as you know, was 157. And this year it has jumped to 187. So it's a 30 marks. Yes, sir. So we have, so we could improve by 30 marks. So last year, what happened with me was when I was not expecting that I would clear mains. So I did not start preparing for the personality test right after mains. Rather, I started only after January 15, 2020, I think the result was announced. So after that, my interview date was February 24th, and then I started preparing. But the key factor which led to my low score was my low confidence level. I had practiced sufficiently because I attended around 9 mocks, but my confidence level was very low. And preparation from myself, because each word of the detailed application form can be asked as a question. So that level of preparation was lacking from my end. So this year, when I had last year, when I went for the interview, I was consecutively asked questions which I had no idea about. So this led to some stress which built up within me, and it showed on my face, and they could understand very well that I was getting nervous, and this led to low score. But this year, I started preparing for the personality test just 3 days after my mains. Mains was over by, I think, by January 20s or something, 17, some date, 2021. And so I started, just after 3 days, I started preparing for the personality test. So this year, what I did differently was, I asked one of my friends who scored about 200 last year what she had done. So she had told me that she used to speak in front of the mirror for around 20 minutes on a regular basis. So I practiced that for around 2 to 3 months. from January end to February, March. So those 2-3 months, I practiced it very diligently. And then we formed a group. I had a group of 4 friends. We were a group of 4 friends. We had a Telegram channel. Every day at 5, we used to schedule a meeting and discuss the current affairs relevant for that day. And from the interview personality test based topics. So within that group, we covered the detailed application form, optional subject, the other current affairs, and everything which was possible we covered, and we used to discuss it. So that eliminates the fear of speaking in front of 2 to 4 people. And then the last aspect that I followed was attending mocks. Like last year, I attended 9 mocks. This year also, I attended 8 to 9 mocks. A few were offline and a few others were online. So I took feedback and I worked on the areas which they mentioned and where I must improve upon. So these were the broad strategies that I followed. And more than that, I think, I took that generally people get stressed for that personality test. I have seen that people see it as the last stage of clearing this examination. So this year, because we got so much time and I had learned from my past mistakes, I tried to control myself. Even on the day of the examination, on the day of personality test, I remember having thought about a comedy which was shared by my brother. So all these strategy I did to de-stress myself. So I think so that's very important, because that day I saw many of them being very excessively stressed.
Oh, okay.
And they can read it from our voice and face. So this time my confidence level was improved because of my preparation. So I could deliver well, sir.
Good. Thank you, Aswathy. So that broadly covers the 3 high-level areas of prelims, mains, and interview. And you have very nicely summarized each one in points that I and the other students can take away with us. The last part in terms of my questions, after this, we will open the floor for questions from aspirants. The last part, Aswathy, having seen you for about 4 years now, I really want you to kind of help students on what should a routine for a successful aspirant look like, a daily routine, and how important do you think is the role of the food that we eat? Because these are some of the neglected items in many aspirant preparation. I used to neglect when I was an aspirant. So role of food, role of sleep, the role of exercise, and role of having a good state of mind, managing all distractions, Aswathy. Anything that you say in this regard is really helpful, because I feel these softer aspects are the ones which really help you to push 8 hours or 10 hours or 12 hours on a consistent basis, Aswathy. If you can just share with if you can just share some of the tips that you followed to manage all this for the last couple of years, Aswathy.
Yes, sir. Sir, first of all, in the case of food, I stayed in Chennai for the entire 4.5 years of my preparation. So I used to resort to self-cooking.
Wow.
That might not be applicable for everyone, but I consciously chose it. Then I used to include whatever possible green leafy vegetables, fruits, and avoid the junk food. Mostly, I'm not saying that I have not consumed it, but generally I never used to eat much outside, and especially from the stalls. So I used to just be worried about the hygiene factor, because once you get a sickness, it can derail your preparation. So in the case of food, and I used to consume in little quantities, because I needed energy to sit for a longer time. Hence, I generally made sure that I don't overconsume the food. So what is healthy, that will vary according to you, but I generally preferred vegetables, fruits, milk, eggs, so all those which is considered generally good for a student. Then, sir, in the case of sleep, I rise early in the morning. So I used to wake up at around 4 to 4:30 and sleep by 9:30 p.m. or even before 9:30, 8:30, all those time. After 6:30, I was not 6:30 p.m. I was not very productive. However, I used to drag myself till the time struck 9. So this was my routine, and I used to record it in a notebook so that I understand my sleep wake cycle. There have been weeks when I consistently woke up late and slept late or slept early. So when I used to record it, it used to give me the direction so that I can improve the coming day. For example, when one particular week I don't follow this schedule, the next week I will be motivated to follow this schedule, seeing some past records or my achievements that I have been doing. I have been waking up early prior to this week. So that recording was an important part. And then I generally avoided using social media or mobile phone much. As I think most of the aspirants follow, that depends upon case to case, but I generally stayed away from it so to avoid distraction. And sir, in the case of exercise, yes, we covered food, sleep, and then exercise. I used to consistently engage in some kind of physical activity for 30 to 40 or even 30 to 40 minutes per day or even 1 hour. Regardless, there have been days that I was not able to do, or I completely skipped exercises, but I used to get back into the track within a day or two. So that's very important, because I feel that our body is a system and it requires adequate amount of physical activity. It improves our focus and concentration. So this has not been that it is. I'm not saying that from the day I started preparation I was like this. Initially, when I started preparing, when I shifted from Kerala to Chennai, I had this problem of back pain because of continuously sitting for longer hours.
Correct.
And that is when I decided to engage in some physical activity, and then it was totally solved. So it is very essential to engage in some form of activity. And so last point, I think it was about
the
routine.
state of mind, managing
Yes,
yourself,
sir.
so to say, managing yourself during the preparation.
Yes, sir. So it took for me. I quit in 2016 June, and I cleared it only in this year, 2021 October. So it has nearly been 5 years. So it is not easy for one to maintain the level of motivation or inspiration, anything you call, for such a long period, especially when uncertainties are all around you. We have, first of all, there is unpredictability with respect to the examination. Second, there was so much of issue with the COVID-19. And yes, sir, and I could not clear 2 prelims consecutively. So all those had impact on my state of mind. However, I tried to learn from all the mistakes that I did, and in order to maintain a balance, sir, I would say 3 main factors helped me. One was support system. That included my friends. So they were not necessarily UPSC aspirants. I had my friends abroad who are in Canada, whom I used to contact on a regular basis, maybe weekly, once in 2 weeks. So their achievements used to keep me motivated as well. And then they used to constantly remind me of my past records, and that I can do it. That friends and family, whatever suits you, friends, families, these worked as support systems. And in addition, for me, I had very good mentors. So you are one of my mentors from Chennai, and I have a mentor from Kerala as well. So I had my optional teacher, Chelian sir. So all of them have helped me to stay focused. Sir, you know that you have been my accountability partner. For other aspirants, I requested Uday sir to keep a track on me from 2019. So I remember that from 2019 January or 2018 19 January onwards, I used to meet Uday sir on a regular basis every week. If he had time, I used to ask time and go meet him, discuss the problems that I was facing. So he used to keep a check on my level of motivation and the kind of task I was doing, as well as also monitor the score that I was getting in the mock papers. After the lockdown was imposed, I engaged in a special activity with him, that I asked him to keep a check on me by sending him a weekly report. I used to send him whatever I used to do in a week. So it's not that every week I used to be outstandingly performing well. There were weeks where there were days when I have not studied consistently, but one or the other suggestions from him helped me to stay focused. So this concept of accountability, this is a concept of accountability partner. It can be anyone. For me, it was Uday sir. And for some duration, I also used to send it to my friend in Canada. So you can engage it with anyone, whether your friend, family, anyone whom you trust. And so this was one of the areas which helped me, which kept me focused. And so the third aspect is the hobbies that one develops.
Right.
For me, it was running. I used to journal, so it's not a huge journal that I maintain. Just a line or two I used to write before going to sleep and after waking up. So all of these I felt helps one to be focused towards that goal, especially when it takes such a long time. You need that everyday refreshment. So for me, there's the physical activity and this in journaling. And I used to also listen to audiobooks on self-help. They might be, mainly I used to listen to YouTube videos, which are very short, maybe less than 10 minutes, but they are summaries of the self-help books. From that, I used to note down the key points, and then I also used to revise it or refresh it. Somehow it goes into one's internal self, and I started developing good habits because of this. So these having a support system, having an accountability partner, developing good hobbies and habits, I think all these will help one to achieve that state of balance. And so one most important statement that I used to tell myself was that regardless of whatever score I am getting in the examination, I will not consider this exam as the end of my life, because when one sets that kind of goal, that this exam determines the value of yourself, then it can impose unnecessary pressure on oneself.
Very important.
Yes, sir. So I was just, I thought, regardless of whatever result comes, because there are a number of factors which must work together for us to scale this examination and have the service that we desire. So there are so many factors. Only our effort is within our control.
Correct.
So I focused on delivering that well, and rest of the things, the rest of the areas I have no control over. I just left it. Rather, there are days when I felt low and felt depressed. So it was not a very smooth journey. There were ups and downs, and that I scaled through these support systems and all the factors that I shared.
Excellent. It's so good for you to tell these things again. I've heard you speaking some of these things in our one-to-one conversation. It's such a joy to hear this again. When you have cleared this examination and the word IPS gets attached behind your name. It's a joy. More than a mentor, I see you and you see me as a friend, which is what gives me a lot of joy, because guys, I know for those who are there, for me, it gives me immense pleasure to see someone succeed. This was an examination which I attempted unsuccessfully 15, 16, 17 years back. And when I see that, even though I couldn't do, but if someone else, I can even, if I can even contribute that 0.01% in someone else's success, that kind of makes me happy. And Aswathy is a shining example that, which, Aswathy, I've told you also, when I look at you and your success, I somehow feel maybe it was not a bad decision to leave a well-paying job and come to, UPSC teaching, which was quite an unconventional decision in itself. But anyway,
Yes,
that aside, I really wish you all the best, Aswathy. And
Thank you, sir.
And for those who may not be aware, and Aswathy, I'm telling this without asking your permission. So she's already training up for the rigors of the Lal Bahat, no, more than Labasna, more about the NPA, and she is doing all that is necessary to be a kick-ass IPS, quite literally. And I really wish you all the best, Aswathy. And we will continue our conversation after this call as well. But some of the students had a few doubts. I think you have covered all the three stages, plus what it requires to go through all the three stages quite comprehensively. And as I said, the last maybe 5-10 minutes, we have those 2-3 geography optional students who may want to ask you specific questions on geography. But before that, I will take any general questions on the UPSC examination preparation. So if anyone has any questions, maybe you can raise your hands. I will unmute you and then you can ask the questions, please. Anyone has any question? Yeah. Weber, 1 sec. I'm just unmuting you. Yes. Hello. So Weber has one question, Weber. So please go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. First of all, congratulations. My question is, ma'am, that, when we start our preparation, basically in first attempt, there is, curiosity in reading, but, this is my now third attempt that I'm going to give in 2022. In subsequent attempts, reading becomes, at least for me, somewhat become mechanical. The same level of curiosity is not there. It feels like I have to up my preparation, but I don't know how to do it. How to build that momentum and how to kind of up our preparation.
Yeah. How does one feel motivated, Aswathy, studying the same book again and again? How do you answer that? That's a very good question. At the end of the day, the sources are limited. You have somewhat answered revision is the key, but maybe you can just,
yes, sir.
In case you have more points, you can just answer to Vaibhav's question on this. How did you keep motivated reading the same books again and again?
Yes, sir. So, sir, I think rather than motivation, I took it as a task. It was hard for me to revise even after giving the interview this year on August 20. I started preparing on that day itself, or I think the next day I started doing whatever was possible. So it is hard, but then I took it as a task, because even if when you leave one line of that polity book, you might lose a few questions in prelims. So I always, that prelims used to haunt me because I did not clear the prelims for 2 consecutive attempts. Therefore, I felt the need of repeatedly reading the books. So I would say that if you have read the books already for 4 to 5 times, rather than mechanically reading it, you should go and attend the mocks, whether it be NCRT based mocks or specific subject wise mocks. Sir, I felt I had the same problem, and I used to come to you and tell that I am reading, but I'm not getting much out of it. So you only suggested me to go for mocks instead of mechanically reading it repeatedly. So when we go for mocks, we realize that though we read it so many times, there are areas which are gray, and then you come back and read it with curiosity.
Yeah.
Very enough. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vaibhav. Thanks for the question. So we had a question from Juhi who has put it on chat. She primarily wants to know the CSAT strategy, Aswathy. As you may be aware, both in 2020 and 2021, there are students who have crossed 100, 105 in GS1, but have not been able to cross 66.67 in CSAT. Anything that you followed, any specific strategy you followed for CSAT, Aswathy?
Yes, sir. So for CSAT, I think most of the aspirants keep CSAT pending. for the last month of preparation. So in my case, I used to have that conscious thought that CSAT is also tough, and I used to take it up at least 6 months prior to the examination.
Wow.
If not six, at least 4 months prior. And I used to practice not more than 15 minutes a day. So when I set CSAT as within the daily routine, I used to take up the questions, previous year's questions, basically. So one paper, for example, 2020, for this attempt also, as I was preparing, I took the 2020 paper and I solved it within 4 days. So I solved only around half an hour on a daily basis. So it took me 4 days to solve the 2020 paper. I used to solve mainly previous year's question. And then in whichever topic was confusing, I supplemented it with additional questions from random websites. India Bigs.
Okay.
There are random aptitude-based websites. So there are sample questions and answers as well as how the way of solving. So in addition, I for all 2020, 19, 18, all those papers, I took a glance and analyzed the areas from where they are asking questions. And then I shortlisted 20 plus areas. And these 20 plus areas, I went to those websites and took additional questions and solved. So this improved my speed. And it kept me, it improved my confidence that I was constantly preparing for CSAT as well.
Excellent, Aswathy.
So, yes.
I do remember in your weekly sheet, one of the things used to be PYQ and CSAT. Both of them used to be separate. Sir. And majority of the time, I saw that there was a tick mark against it. So that's how I realized that you are doing CSAT on a regular basis. Great.
Yes, sir.
So, Juhi, does that answer your question? In case you have more, you can add or you can raise your hand. I'll divert the mic to you. Meanwhile, Aswathy, Shefali has a question. I think this part many of them have asked. There are some parts in general studies which are not like the core. Means they are neither polity nor economy nor modern India. Things like, for example, society in GS1. Okay.
Yes,
internal
sir.
security in GS3. So there are few of the mains aspirant who just wanted to know society, how do we do? There are good 4 or 5 questions on society. How did you do it? Because you don't have a standard book, or did you refer any standard book for society, Aswathy? And internal security.
No, sir. Okay, sir. So for me, the topics such as society, last year I did not refer to any source. Okay. Other than current affairs and whatever general awareness that we have from society. I tried reading NCERT book, but I could not finish it. But I gave it a glance. I got that idea from Anudeep Shetty, who was topper in his year. So he had mentioned that from NCERT, there is an NCERT book for sociology, society. Correct. So correct. From 11th or 12th, I don't remember exactly. So I just gave it a quick glance. So, and I did not make any special notes or so. But last year I did it. This year I had followed, there is a website, Only IAS, nothing else. So they had uploaded society dedicated, I think a 200 page, it's not PDF, it's a PPT only. So I just gave it a glance, sir.
Okay.
So otherwise also, when we prepare for the general studies and current affairs mainly, most of the topic gets covered. But with this PPT, I got a comprehensive idea. So that was what I followed for society. In the case of internal security, I had dedicated notes. So that I made using the weather, I browsed in the internet and I made maybe I used to take an A4 sheet, fold it into 2, and then write on one side, whether it be cybersecurity, whatever the initiatives are, and what points we need to remember, or definitions, all those and block diagrams. So such way, I used the Google mainly. There were no standard texts. So.
Excellent, Aswathy. So basically, you're saying you will, copy paste the syllabus. I mean, in one respect, and then see what is the news article related to that syllabus and make your own notes on a progressive basis.
Yes, sir.
Perfect, Aswathy. Shefali, does that answer your question? You have any supplementary question before I move to Bhavna's question? Okay. So I think she's good with it. Then you have she's asking what site name did you say for society? Only IAS, is it?
Yes, sir. Only IAS.
Only
IAS,
IAS.
nothing else. I think that's the total.
Okay.
They have a YouTube channel as well.
Okay.
They have a Telegram channel. So on that group, in that group, they upload these material.
Got it, Aswathy. Perfect. And Bhavna is one of the students with the geography optional. So she also wanted to know if you can suggest her a good platform for mock test for geography optional. Where did you take, by the way?
Sir, I took with Neetu
Singh, ma'am. Got it.
Neetu Singh, ma'am.
Okay.
So, however, I did not attempt the paper. I did not attempt the entire mock series.
Oh, okay.
So I took only, I think there were 12 tests scheduled, but I took around 8 only.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, I emphasized on solving previous year's question. And for me, more than test series and the kind of questions, the time management was what I was lacking. Yeah. So this year I emphasized on time management as well as presentation. So that even if we have any other faculty, it is possible. For me, the base was set by Chelian sir, who was my geography optional teacher. And this year's mock test that I took, it was just for time management. I did not take any content, much of content from her test series.
Got it, actually. No, since
you're I have friends who have I have friends who had also enrolled in the Shankar Academy for geography optional. So they had given good feedback only.
Oh, okay.
And the score was the score that my friend has got is around 270. It's not that bad.
Yeah, which is good. 270 in any optional is good, Aswathy. This yes, also, while we have 2 more hands going up, this also brings to the question, Aswathy, if a question has to be answered in 8 to 9 minutes, Aswathy, which is what typically the time is, generally both for prelims as well as for mains. Yeah, I'm sorry, both for optional as well as for general studies. What did you fundamentally do, Aswathy, in 2019 and 2020 attempt for geography, which helped you to cover those 60 marks? What did you exactly do? Because your knowledge base was more or less the same in both the year. How did you increase by 60 marks by attempting more?
Yes, sir. So last year I was unable to draw the diagrams, integrate the diagrams as well as the written part within the time slot. So this year I deliberately practiced drawing the diagrams much more efficiently and in a simple fashion.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, sir, writing practice. Last year I did not do so much of writing practice.
Mm-hmm.
I had not attempted the paper 1 and paper 2 in the examination pattern for the mocks. So this year I have attempted it. So it is just the practice that the number of mocks that I improved this year.
Got it. So number of mocks, writing practice.
Yes, sir.
I think that's one key message.
And sir, in case of yes, sir, in case of geography, I would also like to add the what I did in addition. I integrated the geography this diagrams. I also labeled them, which many of us forget to do. So all that requires time. You need to label it neatly, put the diagram in a dedicated box as we see in the NCERT books. In the NCERT book, diagrams are enclosed in a box. So such kind of representation I followed. In addition, I also, wherever possible, I also used shading, pencils for shading. And everything which was possible from my end, I tried to do in the paper. And I stuck to the word limit. Because not in case of optional, but in other subjects also, sticking to the word limit is very essential. Sir, and in addition, it is important to quote the names of geographers and theories wherever possible. That is how we integrate paper 1 and paper 2.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, Aswathy. Excellent. A related question that Bhavna has posed, which will go to Abhishek and then Praveen, is that books or videos, which one would you prefer? I mean, books, obviously, that's the primary source, but can videos also be helpful? And is it good to use pencil or pen while drawing? So very, very specific
Yes,
questions.
sir.
Yeah.
So I will answer the second question first.
Sure.
So with respect to pencil and pen, it depends upon an individual's capacity or skill. I have basic drawing skill. So I was comfortable in drawing with pen, and I used blue pen for writing and black to draw, so that it makes the diagram distinct.
Okay.
If you are not comfortable in drawing with pen, you can use pencil definitely, because you can erase it if at all there is a mistake. But I was confident of using pen and I practiced it, so I used pen.
Excellent.
Then the second, yes, sir. To answer the first question, which all books I follow, books or videos? Sir, for the static content, I have followed books, only books. But for the current affairs, I used to follow video. That is from this Only IAS. This is the YouTube channel that I used to follow, because they upload the video or the current affairs on a daily basis, and it is generally, the time span is only maximum it goes to 20 minutes. So I can quickly complete it. And rather than reading from a website, I thought when I see a video or listen to an audio, it will improve my retention. So it used to be fun. Otherwise, it is just a boring thing to just read the current affairs from any website. So that's why I followed. So I followed a mix of both, but mostly books. I preferred books.
You prefer books. Got it, Aswathy. Excellent. Thank you, Bhavna. Thanks for your question. We now move to Abhishek Ranga. Abhishek, you can ask your question, please. You can unmute and ask your question.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Congratulations. Ma'am, I have two quick but very specific questions, ma'am. The first one is, there is a lot of doubt about current affairs. So what is the specific source that you refer and stuck to till the end of the exam cycle? And the second one is, it all boils down to what you do in a single day. So how was the scheduling for GS, mains, GS, current affairs and optional on a single day? Scheduling the number of hours per day.
Okay. So the first question is current affairs source. I followed from mid 2018. I would say from mid 2018, I am following this website called Only IAS and nothing else. They have a YouTube channel. I used to listen to the current affairs, only the current affairs videos, and its name is Prelims Booster. Every day I used to listen and take notes, very short notes. So for me, one day's current affairs used to, I used to write on one side of the A4 sheet. So for 30 days, it will be just 15 sheets that you have. And I revised this booklet for my mock as well as for the mains exam, for the main prelims exam. I revised these for around 3 to 4 times. In addition, every day I used to solve 10 questions, 10 MCQs from Insight's website. They upload on the basis of the current affairs relevant for that day. So that I used to solve diligently, and I revised that at least 2 times, because it was not possible for me to revise it for more than 2 times, as it used to be a bulky document. Then, so this was with respect to current affairs, and I read a newspaper on a daily basis, not more than 40 to 45 minutes. So this was my current affairs. And the second question that you asked is how I split my time. So it was generally based upon which month of preparation that I am in. For example, now it's November, so we have time for prelims. So during these months, I had optional. I prepared for optional as well. November, December, all those months, you can integrate the preparation for optional. I had given time for prelims. I'm saying that MCQs. I used to solve 10 MCQs regardless of the phase of examination that I was going through. Whether it be after prelims, after mains, or interview, I used to solve it. It became a habit for me to solve that 10 MCQs and listen to the Only IAS current affairs and take notes. In addition, regardless of the phase of preparation, I used to write one mains question every day. first activity of my day is writing one GS answer. That used to not take more than 10 minutes. So writing one mains answer, taking these current affairs and prelims based MCQs, and then depending upon the month of preparation, I used to take the optional subject, but for not more than 1 or 1.5 hours, maximum 1 hour. Or if I have to cover much of syllabus, to the max I'll take not more than 2 hours, but I don't remember having taken more than 2 hours. 1 hour on a daily basis, that's all. So initial days when I was in my first and second attempt and all, I used to take around 2 hours. So it was depending upon the breadth of topic being covered by my faculty in that particular week. We had classes only in the weekends. So that weekend he used to take around 6 to 8 hours. I used to make it a point to entirely cover whatever he had taught in the coming week before the next weekend comes. That was the initial course. Then during my third attempt and all, it's just that 1.5 hours I used to spend. From Feb or March, I used to also have slot for CSAT because that also I used to consider it as a challenge. So then I allocated CSAT as well. Regardless of the phase of examination I was in, to the max, I have prepared for 10 hours, but that too, not more than a week in a month. Generally, it used to be around 7 to 8 hours only. And within that, that was my preparation duration. Then I used to have, as I already mentioned, I used to have time for exercise, and because I cooked myself, I had to give time for those activities. So I tried to maintain a balance. Even when the prelims or mains is near, I did not extend myself to 10 or 12 hours. I tried to maintain it to 8 to 7 hours.
Excellent.
I think I answered that question.
Yeah. No, that's excellent, Aswathy. That's what makes the preparation sustainable. No? Constantly 8 hours, touching 8 hours. Excellent. Thank you, Aswathy. I think that was a good answer. Abhishek, you have any follow-up questions?
One follow-up question, sir. With regards to current affairs, do we continue with the same source even for mains, or do we shift on to another convention sources like main 365 or any other sources for upgradation to mains preparation?
Yeah, so I did not read any of those mains 365 because I felt that I lacked time for revision. Rather than reading the mains 365, I made an attempt to make notes of each and every topic in the syllabus. So I had notes for almost every topic. So that was one effort that I took. And then the second aspect was that for the mock, whichever mock I was attending, I used to attend around 5. I used to write 5 questions after the prelims till the mains. So you have around 2.5 months. During that time, I increased the number of questions that I used to write from 1 to 5. So revising these and attending the mocks, revising the optional. So I did not have time for doing that mains 365 current affairs. Whatever current affairs I had learned in the prelims, that only I tried to put in mains also. But I made special emphasis and note of the mock papers that I was attending. I revised it continuously.
Excellent, Shruti. I think we are hearing this term revision multiple times, which kind of underscores the importance of a good revision for the entire examination. Thank you, Ashwati. I think that makes it abundantly clear. We have one question, perhaps the last or the second last question from Praveen. Praveen, maybe you can please go ahead with your question.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am. Congratulations, madam.
Thank you.
So, sir, madam, directly to the point, you said that you made notes of daily current affairs. So, yes. Is it there is this huge division among aspirants and as well as toppers whether or not to make notes out of current affairs? Because apart from reading every day, it does take a lot of time to do the notes also. So, is it the efforts we put in doing that? Do they report it in marks, or can we just taking notes, or can we just rely on single source and keep revising them, like a vision document or an insights document?
Yeah. How important is note making, Ashwati? Should we make notes, or should we make use of the readily available notes in the market? just read them again and again? At least what was your strategy?
Yes, sir. So for me, it was I liked to write. So I felt that when I write, and it is easy for me to revise when I have something written with my own handwriting. And rather than mundanely writing it, I used to draw maps wherever possible. And whatever extra data that I could add to make it look or make the retention faster, I used to deploy such techniques while making note itself. And that note is very short. It is not that I'm writing elaborately. For example, you take any species. Generally, we have the current affairs news regarding gharial, crocodiles, and all that. So I write gharial, what is its status, critically endangered. So I don't even write critically endangered. It is just CR that I used to write. IUCN CR. Areas, whichever area that is mentioned, Chembal, something. And then if it all required, a map of Madhya Pradesh roughly. This is rough. So roughly, and highlight the area which is where it is found. So I found this method is interesting. That's why I resorted to it. But I have friends who have never made notes, who just read from the available material in the market. For me, I felt I required my handwritten notes. So that's why I made it. So it is totally up to you, whatever you find better.
Got it.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Praveen. Thanks for your question. We have one question from Raj Shekhar. Raj Shekhar, you may want to proceed, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah, good afternoon, Raj Shekhar.
Yes.
You're audible. Please go ahead with your question.
Ma'am, I am in section A and section B of paper 1 of geography optional. I am more confident in human geography. So should I have to equally focus on human geography, physical geography, or can I revise and surely attend 2 questions in human geography and leave physical geography with 1 questions? And shall I go with that preconceived mindset, or should I be equally good and go in the exam hall and choose where should I choose the options?
Okay. So I would say my personal experience, I don't think I am in a position to suggest what you should do. What I did was I never gave that special emphasis on any of the topics. I equally studied all the modules which were included in the syllabus, because what I felt was, regardless of howsoever I was competent in one, I was confident in one area, the questions might turn out to be something else.
Tougher. Exactly.
So it will be a total surprise. And if at all there comes a question from physical geography, which portion you neglected or which was easier for you to understand, then I will feel sorry for myself. So I made it a point that whether it's human geography or physical geography, I studied everything equally. So I felt that helped me to write an answer regardless of the question, whatever was asked.
Okay.
But some people do it, but some people make that special effort on, give that special importance to human geography and a little less emphasis on physical geography. But in my case, I did not do it.
Okay.
Just because I was scared and not confident enough to do it.
Okay, ma'am. Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
Please, when it comes to maps, I feel like in human geography, there is less scope for making maps. Like in perspectives, there is very less scope. In that situation, what can I do, ma'am? Can I leave that question with only content and not draw any maps, or should I forcefully draw some diagrams or maps in that question?
Okay, you need not always resort to maps. You can draw block diagrams. In perspectives, there is ample scope for block diagrams. I think even that you have the perspectives, you just do a Google search, and with Only IAS have uploaded, that website has uploaded a few of the content with respect to perspectives in human geography. There they have given block diagram representation. Okay. So rather than forcefully integrating it, what I did was, whenever that topic was taught, either our teacher used to give the diagram, or we used to somehow find a diagram for that. So that special effort to include a diagram was not at all present in my case.
Okay, okay, ma'am. And
somehow that diagram was also given, or we used to when we studied, because it is geography, it is not worth writing without a diagram, right?
Yes.
So somehow that thought that I drew a diagram for every page in the geography, and there are some students who even draw 2 diagrams. I could not draw 2, but at least I managed to draw 1. So you need to have that thought in mind. So whenever you write, there are all possibilities. You can draw block diagram, flow charts, some arrow, something and all you can draw.
Okay, okay. And paper 2, I am fine with India outline, ma'am, but some used to say that you should also draw state boundaries and you should show. Is that possible, ma'am?
Yeah. Yes, it's very much possible. No, so that if I was very happy about drawing maps, so map of India, yes, you must definitely know map of India, and you also should have an idea of how each state looks. So that I used to, whenever I read the newspaper, just for time pass, if the article was boring, I used to draw. Sometimes in the newspaper itself, for example, if the news is from Chhattisgarh, they draw Chhattisgarh, small Chhattisgarh enclosed in a box in Hindu. So I used to practice, just for fun, I used to practice Chhattisgarh's map on the newspaper itself. I used to scribble. So by the end, when you do it for this repeatedly, for some time, you get to know how each state looks and where you can place them. I never used to mark it within the India's map, but independently, I used to know how each state, I should draw each state. Roughly, it's not that it should be very perfect.
Okay, ma'am. And what should be the size of diagram? Sir has checked my paper and he has said that my size of diagram is very small. What should be the size of diagram for world map and India map? What should be the size in the page given?
Okay, so India map, I think that you might understand only by consistently drawing it, but it shouldn't definitely occupy half of the page. World map, yes, but for what I used to do is I used to split the maps. World map also, like South America, North America, that I can draw within a longer box, and then so entire world I can cover in 2 to 3 maps. So you cannot, I don't think it is advisable for you to draw the entire map in a page. You should have some written content as well. In the corner of the page, I used to draw, generally the bottom right corner.
Okay, ma'am.
Bottom right, okay.
And in compare and contrast question and differentiation question, should we go for horizontal differentiation or vertical differentiation?
Okay. I think I have not understood that question properly. But if it is with respect to presentation, I used to draw tabular columns.
Oh, okay.
Is that and comparison and then contrast? So I used to make that 2 separate horizontal columns. Comparison, I would write similarities, and contrast or difference, I used to write differences. But I used to draw table.
Table form. Okay, that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. That's it, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you, Harshikar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have actually crossed the timeline by 10-12 minutes, but we can take one final question if anyone has any question. Though Aswathy's points were quite clear and very succinct, but in case anyone has any question, we can you can ask now. Else, I think we should. I'll just give 5-10 seconds in case anyone has one final question. Okay. Great. So I think this was really useful, Aswathy, you taking time off your hectic schedule, and good to connect back. And on behalf of ExcelOn Academy and all the students of mine, we really wish you a great and a successful career, starting with an exemplary training course at NTA itself. I'm sure you will do exceedingly well there, and not just there, but beyond beyond NPA for the service of this country. And you really chosen a service which you really were passionate about, partly because Dad is in uniformed services and you had this passion maybe only halfway through your 20s that you wanted to get into civil services. But once you decided, I think it was all, you were single-mindedly focused on it, and you did everything that it was required to get to this coveted service. My sincere and genuine best wishes to you, Aswathy. It was wonderful talking to you. It was very inspiring for me as well, not just for the students, but for me as well. Thank you so much for taking time, Aswathy.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. And thank you for always being a part of my journey, sir. And even in the future, I will always be in contact with you, sir.
Sure, appreciate
I expect that you will guide me through in the future as well, sir.
Thank you for these kind words, but I think, yeah, I'll always be there as a friend for you, as I have been. And I always tell students that, irrespective of what institutes may say, the role of a teacher is maximum of 1%, Aswathy. It is 99%. It's always the aspirant who does it, though you've been very kind to me and some of the other faculties, but we know that we were there only in certain points in time of your career or your preparation. The 99% was when you were all alone, sometimes down, sometimes depressed, as you by your own words. So I think one key takeaway for all aspirants is you may study in the best of the coaching institutes, you may purchase the most expensive of notes, you may write all test series, but I think this internal inspiration, the fire, is something which the aspirant has to bring by himself or herself. Once that is there, you will always find people. Either it could be me, it could be someone else. You will always find people who can help you out, guys. Yeah. Thank you so much, Aswathy.
Yes,
really a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you for joining, and we'll meet tomorrow for our class number 6 on environment. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye, Aswathy.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye.